Flying saucers. What is the very first sighting? Do leaked secrets reveal the truth?
Proves there are flying saucers, alien visitors, the whole business.
Do UFOs attack Russian planes? Are there natural explanations?
There had been on that evening a movement on the fault.
Are some craft hoaxes?
It was quite easy to reproduce these pictures.
Are aliens abducting people?
What I saw was real. It was damn real.
Can we hear them?
We have not ruled out that this is actually a signal from extraterrestrial intelligence.
Are they watching us? The beginning, June 1947, Washington State. A startled private pilot. The cause, peculiar-looking aircraft near Mount Rainier. Wobbling and flipping, faster than any known planes. Amazed, the pilot lands. Kenneth Arnold's sighting begins a new age. Word spreads. The press name them flying saucers. Reports multiply.
Guns, tanks, bombs, they're like toys against them.
Fictional generals fear space invaders. Real-life commanders fear this world at war. They dread panic.
Looks like they're gonna come out of that gully pretty soon.
Even a 1938 dramatization has caused chaos. It forces an apology from its producer, Orson Welles.
We were surprised to learn that a story which has become familiar to children through the medium of comic strips and adventure stories should have had such an immediate and profound effect upon radio listeners.
Nor do the military have answers. They haven't been able to resolve the mystery of UFOs seen over Europe in the last months of World War II by US night fighter crews, who dubbed them Foo Fighters.
The sightings we saw were, I think, were in about in the 44, November or December then. We'd see these balls of light that would fly off the wings of our airplane. The one I saw was like a white light. A lot of the other people reporting in it saw red lights, and some of them would see some green lights, and some of them reported that they would try to chase one while they never could catch it.
We'd turn into it, and it would turn with us. And we'd turn away from it, and it would still turn with us. And I put my gun sights on, trying to get on it, but I never could.
We flew the British Mosquito, which was capable of 450 knots. And we opened it up a number of times and tried to close with it, and we never came anywhere close to it.
A German secret weapon? False images in pilots' eyes? Natural phenomena? Investigations drew a blank.
I think the book is open on whether it was imagination, hallucination, or really extraterrestrial or German ground control object. But I haven't seen anything in 50 years that changed the perception of what they were other than unidentified flying objects.
Foo Fighters end with the war. Other sightings continue. Life in post-war America appears tranquil. But national security is still at stake. Is the US under Soviet aerial surveillance? Could Big Brother be watching? UFO sightings are most disturbing near sensitive sites. Atomic secrets are at risk. The threat of nuclear war raises the stakes. Soviet agents and communist subversives could be anywhere. Anyone may be an alien. They look like us.
Say, could you tell me what... Yes, comrade. Nothing. Nothing, never mind.
UFO reports and rare witnesses films do not go to the police or scientists. For 22 years, they're collected for Air Force investigation, always with the two aims described by Project Blue Book's first head.
First of all, to try to determine if the UFO phenomena presents a threat to the security of the United States. And second, to determine if the UFO phenomena exhibits any technological advances which could be channeled into research and development.
In 1969, the files are closed. The Air Force conclusion, no threat and poor data.
They looked at 3,201 sightings. They categorized every single one. They did a quality evaluation of every single one. And what they found was 21% of the 3,201 cases that they examined had to be listed as unknowns, completely separate and distinct from the 10% that were listed as insufficient information. They found that the better the quality of the sighting, the more likely to be an unknown. And yet, what did the Secretary of the Air Force say to the public? He said that on the basis of this report, we believe that no objects such as those popularly described as flying saucers have overflown the United States.
Believers wait for signs. Skeptics want the ultimate proof. At last it comes.
I was absolutely thrilled. To me, this was one of the great moments in my research.
The leaked papers British researcher Tim Good received in 1987 seem the answer. The above top-secret documents concerned US government contacts with aliens. Those in charge are named the Majestic 12. The papers are for President-elect Eisenhower. They reveal the recovery of aliens in New Mexico in 1947. A flying saucer crashes. A local rancher reports finding it 75 miles northwest of Roswell Army Airfield. The wreckage is unrecognizable. No wires or conventional parts. During the recovery, 4 dead aliens are found. News of the crash gets out. The remains are removed to several different locations for analysis. An effective cover story given out. Civilian witnesses are debriefed.
There was no question that the importance of these documents was monumental. I mean, nothing like it before had surfaced.
It's dynamite. Proves there are flying saucers, alien visitors, the whole business. The implication is, 1, Earth is being visited by extraterrestrial spacecraft. 2, the government has known not only that that is true in the abstract, but has had pieces of wreckage and bodies of extraterrestrials since at least 1947.
Within about 10 minutes of seeing the documents, based upon my research into UFO documents up to that time, I knew these things weren't real.
Critics believe it's a clever forgery with a damning detail lifted from a later genuine letter, the signature of President Truman.
Now, anyone familiar with forensic document analysis knows that a person signing their name never signs it twice in the exact same way. And that suggested to us that the signature from the later genuine non-UFO document was cut out by the forger and pasted onto this false executive order to lend an air of authenticity to it.
They say the signature on there is identical to another signature from a different memo, which I found in the first place. I say if you hold them up to a light table, they are clearly not identical.
Former supporters now believe it's a con. For them, the copy is too exact.
For me, the clincher is that lifted signature. However, let me say I am convinced that whoever fabricated that document, if it was fabricated, must have had inside knowledge. There's no way it could be otherwise. And there's no question that the Majestic 12 papers have indeed pointed people in the right direction. And I think essentially the information contained therein is accurate.
To get a good view of government UFO files, one group goes to court. The National Security Agency protests in an affidavit. The judge refuses to let them read the contents.
We filed for the 21-page above top secret affidavit. The judge had referenced it in his finding, and we eventually got it. The only trouble is, as you start to go through it, you find that it's blacked out, and pretty soon all blacked out. 75% of the document isn't there, and people say, scrape away the black, there's nothing underneath. They Xerox it first.
In the eyes of the state, there is no need to know why there is no need to know.
The cover-up alone is proven by the released documents, released by agencies such as the FBI, who denied any involvement in UFO research until the Freedom of Information Act showed that they'd been lying. They released 1,100 pages of documents. CIA denied any interest in the subject. Suddenly we have now, I would think, thousands of pages of UFO-related information dating back to the 1940s, which quite clearly indicates that there has been a cover-up.
100,000 cases are archived at the private Center for UFO Studies. Mainstream science ignores them.
I am convinced by over 20 years of work in this field that there is a mysterious phenomenon occurring that is being neglected by science, not by the public, but by science. And it's to science's detriment that it's doing so.
The data gather dust. Elsewhere, governments launch more active studies. The former Soviet Union, March 1990. Interceptors scramble to investigate pulsing lights northeast of Moscow. For 3.5 hours, they stalk the UFO, which moves at speeds up to 3,000 miles an hour. No radar image appears on the screens of ground stations. Thermal imaging produces results. The UFO is photographed. The secret results are proof for the Chief of Air Defense Forces.
This 1990 case is the only one supported by evidence. All other possible contact reports by both civil and military aircraft are merely eyewitness accounts. This is the only case for which there is concrete proof.
His pilots do not fire on UFOs.
As far as official instructions are concerned, we in air defense have certain unwritten rules that mean we only use radar and not armaments against UFOs.
Nor are personnel seeing Western stealth planes.
We never thought it was American stealth aircraft. The radar characteristics are not the same. Stealth behaves like a plane in terms of speed and maneuverability. UFOs are very different.
Their files list many cases. This pilot finds a light closing on him. There's contact. The aircraft goes into a rapid descent. On landing, there's damage to the left wing. From 1977 on, an official Ministry of Defense study collects hundreds of reports. They hope to gain alien technology for military use. The covert research continues. Is this a UFO or smoke from a gunnery exercise? Mass observation of UFOs is nothing new in the East. Is this UFO a balloon? Never before seen in the West, this amateur footage purports to show a UFO over the parliament in Vilnius, capital of Lithuania. It hovers noiselessly, appearing to land. It moves unlike a normal helicopter or plane. At dawn the next morning, local militia video this nearby. Enhanced, the night visitor looks like this. Hundreds of people see a giant UFO over the city of Petrozavodsk in northwest Russia in 1977. Hasty studies establish that it's an optical phenomenon, the burning booster rocket from the secret launch of a man-made satellite. At the Soviet Academy of Sciences, such phenomena are considered worthy of serious inquiry. In addition to the country's military study, the governing body for academic research coordinates the country-wide collection of information for scientific analysis. The building houses the Central Committee for the Study of UFOs, which gathers data from 10 other scientific academies.
We carry out research in two ways. One is passive. We analyze UFO reports. The other way is active. For some sightings, we carry out investigations in the field.
12 years of research are carried out at this site. Train passengers see a UFO approach. They say a metallic craft landed here. Biologist Professor Simyakov believes there are permanent changes to the scene.
This is the landing place where we carried out some interesting tests. We did experiments in both physics and biology.
His experiments find living creatures shun these spots. Divining rods find unusual spiral energy patterns at UFO landing sites. 20 years of studies produce similar results. From the early days on, the ground inside is empty of all life, even microbes. According to his measurements, inside the circles, time speeds up. Most puzzling of all, Earth samples taken from landing sites contain tiny spheres. His work leads him to conclude these are extraterrestrial, containing DNA, the seed of life itself. Tests in America are divided. Either of unknown origin or common parts of filter systems. Yet some Russian researchers believe alien microtechnology is being placed here by interplanetary prowlers.
Is er iets daarbuiten? Discovery vraagt, zijn wij alleen?
What on earth could it be? There's no natural object which emits pulses like this. The only other thing is extraterrestrial intelligence.
Of zijn zij reeds onder ons? Vertegenwoordigen wij het enige leven in de kosmos?
The number of locations where life exists is colossal.
Het antwoord volgende week elke avond om 10 en 12 uur.
Kenneth Arnold's sighting over Washington State is a close encounter of the first kind. The object is seen, but no more. Where traces are left, these are the second kind. Now come close encounters of the third kind, where people observe aliens throughout the world. There are close encounters of a fourth kind. In these, the witness interacts with the aliens. Todmorden, England. In November 1980, an experienced police officer, Alan Godfrey, is on night patrol.
I was on a 10-6 night duty, so I decided that I would go up to this local council estate. As I was about to turn, I saw another 500 yards up the road this object. As I got near to this object, it became apparent to me that what I was looking at wasn't something that I would normally find in the early hours of the morning in Todmorden, you know. I thought it could have been a hot air balloon that had come down, but obviously as I got nearer and nearer, I realised that this was a metallic, man-made craft. It was a nuts and bolts thing. It wasn't an hallucination, it was real. This object was 20 foot wide. It's 14 feet high. It's diamond-shaped. The bottom half of it was rotating. The top half was stationary. It had a bank of dark windows, or could have been panelling. I got out the car, picked a brick up, and throwing it at it, I'd have probably found out whether the windows or not. The trees that lined the road were shaking violently. There was leaves and branches flying all over the place. Yet, whilst I was sat in the car, I didn't feel any vibration. I didn't hear any noise. But I certainly wasn't going to get out of the car. I picked my clipboard up, put it on my knee, and proceeded to draw it. Now, as I'm drawing the object, I'm suddenly at the other side of it, driving the police car. And the object had gone.
Gone too is a period of time. After hypnotic regression, the officer can remember more.
There's a total blackness. Then there's a feeling of floating, as though either me on my own or the vehicle, whatever, is floating. Then I wake up in a room. Now, in this room, there is a very tall humanoid, for want of a better word. He's about 6 foot to 6'6", very tall, thin, with a beard. He had a skull cap on and he had this white gown on. What happens then is, I'm asked to get on this bed. Now, the questions asked to me then is, how did he, you know, he wants to get over? Because I said, his mouth's not moving, he's not talking, it's just, he wants me to get on the bed. Obviously, whatever it was having some sort of influence over my thoughts. Yet, I did feel at ease with him. I felt comfortable with him. I got the impression that I'd met him before. I wasn't in fear of him or anything like that. I didn't feel in any danger. So I'm on the bed, and then these horrible little things come. They are a lamp-shaped head with black, dark eyes. That's the best way I can describe them. And there was about 7 or 8 of them.
Officers nearby spot a light in the sky. The constable remains convinced his encounter is genuine. Natural or unnatural explanation? Does a UFO land and search the area? Or is it an unlikely coincidence? Fireball meteor and simultaneous earthquake.
Well, I have no idea what had happened. I don't think it was an earthquake somehow. You know, I still think it wasn't an earthquake.
John Roberts isn't the only one shaken by events. Out on the hills, Hugh Edwards sees a flying saucer.
I saw this object come in along the mountain with the size of a bus, really, right in the middle, on the ends. Came across the mountain towards the road there. As it went over there, it dipped, and I thought it was going to crash. It dipped out of sight into the valley. Well, I'd heard so much about flying saucers, and I thought, well, this is it. And the only sound I heard of it, like a shh, going through the air. I was very surprised to see it, really.
In the village of Llandrithro, the district nurse thinks a plane is down.
I thought there might be an air crash. Maybe, as a nurse, we could help giving first aid. So I called to my daughters, and we got into the car, and we made our way up to the mountain. We drove a fair way along the mountain road, and to our left, we could see a huge orange ball sitting on the mountain, glowing.
Yeah, we stopped and we started looking what we thought was going to be an aircraft on fire.
We'd envisaged sort of, oh God, you know, there might be bodies if it was an aeroplane crash, and we weren't too happy at that prospect, but we were quite surprised to see this big reddish orange ball just sitting there.
There were no flames, and it was so uniform. The shape, the round spherical shape of it made us realise we weren't looking at an aircraft. There were no flames jumping, but it was pulsating, this red orange object that we saw.
And we could see little lights, like fairy lights, coming towards the object in a zigzag pattern, and we assumed at that time possibly there was someone going to see what was what.
With hindsight, we realised that the search party couldn't have got there, located it and got there in the time it had taken us to go from the village up to the mountain. Yeah. No one could have organised themselves to get to the object that we saw.
No search party went out that night, and nothing is ever found at the scene. One astronomer takes a particular interest. Ron Madison can usually only study meteorites in the sky. Here's a chance to get information at close quarters, both from witnesses and from what he assumes is an impact.
Thinking that that explosion might well have been due to an impacting piece of rock, our first reaction was to try to estimate the energy involved. And it seemed to us to be something that would correspond to an explosion of the size of about 600 tons of TNT.
No local RAF plane is missing. No trace can be found. A weird light phenomenon in the Bala Mountains.
We got letters from as far apart as Penzance and Northern Ireland and Derby, all reporting seeing a bright light, maybe comparable with a half moon in brilliance, moving across the sky at the speed of an aircraft, but with no sound, and trailing smoke, just like you would expect something on fire to be crashing. In the next few days, we were to realise, of course, that the village was not very far from the Bala Fault, which is active and has been moving steadily over thousands of years. And unbeknown to us at the time, originally, there had been on that evening a movement on the fault, and that is incontrovertible evidence. This was a coincidence. There were fireballs in the sky at the same time that there was a triggered movement along the Banner Fault. That may be the only link.
Gulf Breeze, Florida, November 1987. A surprise visit on Remembrance Day. From a UFO 3 times as big as a house. Just for the memory, builder Ed Walters takes Polaroids of it. For him, it's the first of many such photo opportunities near abductions and glimpses of aliens. Enough to sell 2 books. The UFO world is littered with hoaxers. Ed is a prime suspect. He won't let us show his pictures or do a critical interview. Gulf Breeze is for the faithful only. Shoreline Park, just across the bay from a naval air station, under civilian flight paths. In this quiet backwater, the sightings become big news locally.
We published the first pictures of the Gulf Breeze sightings back in November of 1987, and I was trying to figure out exactly how to present them, because I tried to run everything that happened locally in Gulf Breeze. When my folks came in, and I said, "You're not going to believe what we're getting ready to run in the paper this week." And I showed them the pictures, and they said, "That's what we saw." It was primarily because of the many other people in Gulf Breeze that witnessed the UFO, both the same night that Ed first got the pictures and many times after that, that the Sentinel continued to carry the story.
I have had 3 other daylight sightings and over 100 sightings at night at Shoreline Park in Gulf Breeze.
I witnessed over 170 sightings. These were red lights, red and white lights, over and around Gulf Breeze, Florida.
I've seen a silver flying dome in the sky that was unidentifiable. Never seen anything like that before, and it was unexplainable.
One explanation which occurs to locals is that some of the sightings are illegal pranks, perhaps by high-spirited ratings from the naval base at Pensacola. Another possibility is that this is an area full of civil and military air traffic. Weird and wonderful craft may be in use. Eyes in the sky. Would most people recognize UAVs? Uninhabited aerial vehicles designed for stealthy reconnaissance and secret observation. Photographs such as these are not difficult to fake if you're an investigative reporter with a little know-how, a styrofoam model, and the right camera.
It was quite easy to reproduce these pictures. He took the majority of his early pictures, about 30 pictures, on a Polaroid 108 camera. It is very easy to double expose the film in that camera. If you don't pull the film out, you can press the button and expose that same piece of film again. You take a picture of the UFO model inside, you go outside, take a picture of the skyline, let the film develop. There you have your double exposure of the UFO flying in the sky.
What does a photo analyst make of Ed's photos? Bruce Maccabee is a government research physicist. He's a believer in UFOs. He's the author of many scientific papers on them. His calculations satisfy him that this is no hoax.
I have analyzed all the films and videos that have been taken by Ed Walters. I have studied most of the videos, I guess, that have been taken by other people down there.
And it's just sitting there.
As far as Ed's pictures and videos are concerned, it's my opinion that they are real. I have analyzed these very carefully, taking into account all the criticisms that have been leveled against them, and have found reasons to reject the criticisms.
In baseball, you get 3 strikes and you're out. For Ed Walters, in this case, strike 1 was when a model was found in the attic of his former home. Strike 2 was when a young man named Tommy Smith came forward and claimed that he was an eyewitness to Ed Walters creating double-exposed UFO pictures. Strike 3 was when we went out and did photo experiments and were able to replicate many of these photos, especially the difficult photos like the UFO hovering over the road. So my conclusion is 3 strikes and you're out.
In the Florida skies and worldwide, people keep on looking. To be in tune with something outside ourselves. Searching for a sign, for hope, even salvation. It's increasingly reasonable to believe we are not alone in the universe. If signs of life on Mars prove true, then life may be even more widespread. Astronomers calculate the number of civilizations we can expect to detect in space. They use the Drake equation. Professor Drake lists for us the factors to take into account.
The first factor is the rate of star formation in our galaxy. Obviously, the more stars you make, the more potential abodes of life there will be. Some fraction of those stars will have planets. That's the second factor, the fraction which have planets. We then have to take into account the number of planets in each system which are potential abodes of life. The next factor is the fraction of systems of living things which give rise to intelligence. The next factor is the fraction of systems of intelligent creatures which develop high technology, detectable technology. But how long do they last? How long are they detectable? Perhaps they're destroyed by cosmic accidents. Perhaps in an ugly way through nuclear war. More likely, we think they become undetectable because they become so sophisticated in their technology that they don't waste any energy. They don't release energy into space, and therefore there's no sign of them to detect. And so we say, well, there must be some longevity. L, the length of time typically a civilization is visible. And now if we take the rate of production and multiply by that L, the end result is that thing we started out to find, which is the number of detectable civilizations in space.
The number is getting bigger. 7 new planets have been discovered in the last year. One almost as big as Jupiter, by the 4th star nearest to the Sun. A planet orbiting star 51 in the constellation of Pegasus, and the giants near PSR 1257 plus 12. The latest estimate of the number of galaxies is now 50 billion. The number of detectable civilizations we might expect is 100 million. It's a pity our world is in the back of beyond. Only a handful of stars could have heard us yet. We may hear E.T. phoning first. SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, is listening out.
I made the first modern radio search in 1960. All over the world, large radio telescopes were being constructed because the beauty and power of radio astronomy had just been recognized. And also at that time, some very much more sensitive radio receivers were invented. The combination of these new telescopes and these new radio receivers gave us a sensitivity very much greater than we've had before. And this was a first. We had, in our abilities, crossed a very important threshold. So it made sense to search. It didn't require anything special in the activities of the extraterrestrials. If they were just like us, we could detect them. Conducting a SETI search from the Earth's surface is very challenging and very difficult. And the reason is you detect intelligent signals all the time. It's just they're all from us.
Have we ever detected an intelligent signal from another world? This man may have. Jerry Amon. At Ohio State University's Big Ear radio telescope, bigger than 3 football fields. From near the center of the galaxy. From a fixed source. An on-off signal 30 times stronger than the background. Heard on a single channel.
We had started a data run on August 15th, 1977 that lasted for about 3 days. As I was looking through the printout, I was recording and marking all of those signals that were unusually strong, and I came across one that was stronger than I'd ever seen before by many times. And I was so astonished that I wrote the word "wow!" exclamation point over in the margin without even thinking. To have signals coming in only one channel indicates the possibility that this was some either unique astronomical event or that it was generated by some transmitter. We are resurveying the sky using more modern equipment, and we have passed through that same region of the sky and have not seen the wow source again.
They check their equipment and their figures. Studies eliminate bugs and glitches, stars, space probes, and terrestrial sources.
We have ruled out effectively nearby spacecraft or space debris or satellites in Earth orbit, and we've certainly ruled out anything close, very close to the radio telescope, like an airplane flying through the beam of the telescope. We have not ruled out the possibility that this is actually a signal from extraterrestrial intelligence.
Even if they can detect us, are there ways of covering the vast distances of space? Scientists have some exotic answers. Wormholes, for example.
If you imagine that this balloon is our universe, we live in 3 dimensions in the surface of the balloon. And it has been suggested that there may be what are called wormholes, that, if you like, sort of run across the balloon from one side to the other, or connecting points, which would allow us to travel from one side of the balloon via a shortcut to the other side of the balloon.
How about warping space?
Imagine that this sheet of paper is our universe, and we're at point A and we want to go to point B. Normally we would have to travel through from A to B through the universe. What would be nice, of course, would be if we could find some way of bending the universe in another dimension to bring those 2 points together and then step across the gap. And that's a sort of space warp, if you like, warping the universe to bring those points closer together.
The answer remains theoretical. For us, we are limited to sending probes into nearby space to gather information, to photograph and measure atmospheric conditions. Could others be doing that too? The most fervent UFO believers say it's already happening. They claim footage taken on board the shuttle Discovery in September 1991 shows an alien craft taking evasive action from one of our missiles. The space battle has commenced. Watch again as the intergalactic invaders engage warp drive and alter course in the blink of an eye. Obviously, the force is not with us. There is another explanation.
And in fact, the very same physical process that caused the space battle is behind the comet that's overhead tonight, the brightest comet in the last 20 years. Now, how does a comet relate to this space battle photographed from the shuttle? Well, the comet is a rocky object with a lot of ices. And when it comes in near to the sun, the heat from the sun causes the ice to sublimate, to turn into vapor. Now, this produces forces on the comet which tweak its orbit and make it very hard to predict the orbit of a comet. The shuttle carries 5, 6, 7 people into space every time it goes up. And those people in the shuttle do exactly what we do on the ground. They breathe, they eat, they drink, and they eliminate. They use the bathroom. The shuttle accumulates all this wastewater. Periodically, it dumps the wastewater overboard. When you dump off this wastewater and it turns into ice, what's going to happen to it? When you come into a part of the orbit where that ice can be hit by the sun, now you've got all these little ice crystals. They're hit by the sun. They start to sublimate. That is, they go from solid ice to gas. When that happens, it creates a jet. That creates a force. In essence, a little mini rocket engine. Much like on the comet that we've seen, but it's certainly not a space battle from, creatures from Zeta Reticuli or wherever.
Our probe Pioneer is leaving the solar system. What would ET's probe look like? Perhaps like this meteorite, seen by the Spacewatch team at Kitt Peak, Arizona. In 1991, by chance, they spot a potential alien craft. Possibly an alien space probe on a reconnaissance mission. "10,000 could pass each year. We would be lucky to notice a single one. So we watch and wait and wonder.
Instantly, when I got it in the scope, it bolted on me.
And then there was these white, orange type balls.
They tend to float in the air.
A large glowing object, a UFO.
It was a nuts and bolts thing. It wasn't an hallucination, it was real.
I saw these creatures standing over me, and I just flipped out.
I don't want to find something on my body and say, gee, I wonder if aliens put it there. I want to know for sure.
In the next hour, we investigate ETs and close encounters, aliens and abductions. But first,
95% plus of the UFO databases, no matter where you go, are these oddballs of light.
the majority of UFOs are rapidly moving lights seen at night. They are not alien craft, or stars, helicopters, or aeroplanes. The explanation is found not in outer space, but literally down to Earth. Yet beware, not all is as it seems.
The same kind of thing that's watched us since the beginning of the project.
Well, I'm driving down to southern Oregon. I got a phone call about a sighting that this young couple had recently. It appears that it is a light, an unusual light, behaving erratically in the night sky. What's unusual about this sighting is that it lasted approximately 3 hours, which is considerably a long time for a UFO sighting. And I think the only way to determine exactly what they saw is to meet them, go over it step by step, make sure that all the details are covered, and of course, what's most important is see what kind of people they are. May I ask, can you show me how you looked at the object through the scope on your rifle?
Sure. I came out and I saw it. I kind of got it with my eye, and then I put my scope up and I looked straight in front of me like that, and I could see it, and then instantly when I got it in the scope, it bolted on me, and I had to kind of glimpse out and then bring it back, and I caught it again up a little bit higher to the right.
And I was like, come on, let me see, let me see, let me see. And he's like, holy crud, it's a jellyfish.
That's exactly what it resembled, was a jellyfish. I thought, whoa.
You mentioned to me that it was putting off what appeared to be beams of light or electrical energy. Can you tell me more about that?
It looked to me like lightning, you know, on a cloudy night when you see lightning rolling through the sky.
It was constantly throwing these beams off, like your hand. And
almost if it was sensing for something.
Yeah, it seemed like it was like taking pictures in a very technological fashion, more advanced than we know.
When I first got it in the scope, I saw it and it arced. It went at an angle probably like that, and it instantly moved straight up at a right.
It was so erratic that
I've never seen anything move that quick. Never in my life ever seen anything move that quick. I mean, just that fast and it was gone.
An aura of mysticism and menace hangs over the Yakima region in Washington state. It's the home of Bigfoot and other apparitions.
At Yakima, all varieties of the UFO experience have been recorded. Balls of light, what might appear to be spacecraft, unusual sounds, creatures, entities, beings, if you will, even what we might consider to be abductions. The most common unidentified flying object seen at Yakima is the ball of light or the sphere of light. These balls are typically orange in color or white in color and are seen hovering, moving slowly. They appear to be inquisitive. They, in some cases, have followed motorists in their cars. UFO sightings have been going on at Yakima at least 30 years by the written record, but there are a lot of strong indications that these objects have been seen over 50 years or more.
There's such a good record of sightings on the Yakima Reservation because fire lookouts have to log every unusual light in case it's a fire. They don't just see fire and smoke, they see balls of light in the air.
I have seen roughly 100 lights, or maybe a few more or a few less over the years. I'd have to go back through my logbooks and count them up. I've been a lookout for 34 years, and this is all is my area, plus some of it over here isn't on my map that I'm still responsible for. And when I see a fire, I have to take a cross shot and then pin it down in a little spot. The lights that I've seen, I've seen at least 100 different lights and objects.
In 1947, Yakima was the site of the world's first flying saucer report by pilot Kenneth Arnold. Flying on a search for a crashed aircraft, he saw a formation of 9 silver objects skipping like saucers over water. Were they alien spacecraft, or were they linked to the phenomena of balls of light? No one knows. In this eerie land, almost anything feels possible. Most sightings are reported by reliable eyewitnesses. For the first time, one of them describes a typical close encounter. Stella Washins has seen strange lights on many occasions.
I was home with my daughter. My husband had went off to, I think, a basketball game, took our 2 sons with him, and it started to get toward dusk. The sun was going down, and so I told my daughter to shut the drapes in the living room. And she was just partially closed the drapes, and she was standing there staring out the window, and I said, close the drapes, and she's standing there, and I said, what are you doing? And she says, I'm
looking at all these airplanes out here. The dog was banging into the door, and he just like bowled past me, and he just went and wedged himself into the table and stayed there. And I was really afraid, and he was more afraid of being outside than he was of me, chasing him out of the house, and he never came in the house. There was different kinds. There was ones that were kind of triangular shaped, and then there was these white, orange type balls. But finally, they were really too close for comfort.
Hotspots of strange lights show up throughout the world, from Yakima to Scandinavia, Australia and Britain. Security cameras at this shopping mall in northern England recorded a ball of light for 30 minutes. It drifted around the building and was captured on 3 cameras. What are the people at Yakima and elsewhere seeing? There are many possible explanations. This is the only alleged photograph of one suspect, ball lightning. It remains an enigma.
I think ball lightning is a good example of a natural phenomenon that is poorly understood. It's not observed very often. These are just dense concentrations of ionized air that hang together and can be basketball, soccer ball size, sometimes smaller. And they tend to float in the air. They've been known to go through closed windows. I don't think anybody really knows what people are seeing when they see big balls of light. As far as we know, these are not ball lightning. And of course, people see them in clear blue skies, totally unassociated with thunderstorms.
The vast majority of balls of light, 95% plus of the UFO databases, no matter where you go, are these odd balls of light. So that's why we primarily analyze them.
Michael Persinger called in an expert on earthquakes.
What I find interesting is to try to associate these balls of light with earthquakes, because we know that large earthquakes generate very bright lights in the sky.
In 1966, during an earthquake in Japan, this glow lit up the night sky. Persinger and Durr set out to discover if earthquakes were generating their balls of light. They found one strange UFO cluster in Colorado. In 1963, hundreds of millions of gallons of toxic waste from a munitions factory was pumped down a 2-mile deep well. Unfortunately, the fluids lubricated a fault system. Over the 5 years of active injection, 1,500 earthquakes were recorded.
You have a fault zone where the rocks are pressed hard together, but if you put some lubrication on that surface, then they're going to slip. Well, we're putting a lot of pressure into the ground, and the ground is cracking and it's bending, and every time you have some sort of strain, you have an elastic wave that's radiated out from it. You think of a rubber band that's stretched, and you can come along with a pair of scissors and cut it, and there's all this energy released as the pieces fly apart.
The lubrication created a knock-on effect. A slow ripple of minor tremors moved away from the injection point. It traveled at speeds of between 30 and 80 miles per month. And just before the quakes reached a district, there was a rash of UFO lights reported.
So it would be fluid injection, strain, UFO reports, earthquakes, in that repetitive cycle.
UFO lights and earthquakes are linked. Light can be created by rocks.
Triboluminescence means light produced by friction, the rubbing together of two surfaces. Many minerals produce this phenomenon, but one of the best known is quartz. And so I have some quartz here with which I will demonstrate this.
This is the first ever film of the release of triboluminescent energy by rocks. There is another possibility. When the Earth moves, the enormous forces crush the crystals that form the rocks. Pulverizing crystals by pressure can release light.
Piezoelectrics literally means pressure electricity, And when we stress or scratch or compress rock crystals such as quartz, it is found that there is a generation of charge within the crystal, and sometimes this can lead to the evolution of light, tiny sparks and flashes within the crystal itself.
Alan Mills can demonstrate this by crushing almost any crystal, in this case sugar cubes. Crushing rock under much greater pressure in an earthquake zone will do the same. In complete darkness, our cameras catch the flash of light released from the sugar cube. But there's a problem. No one knows how this energy could travel from deep in the earth to become a floating ball of light.